Hey, Stoney here with another game of Mechabellum, and this is the final game of the weekend tournament European. Let's go. At the bottom here, we have Sacco playing as a Typhoon Specialist, and he's up against Apooche playing as a Sabertooth Specialist. Typhoon Specialist recently has been nerfed slightly because of the shield, but it has also been indirectly nerfed because of the buff into the Steel Ball's heavy target. Normally, when you play Typhoon Spec, you want to have the Typhoons very close to the line here, but that's a very dangerous play because the Steel Balls would just instant lock onto your Typhoon and kill it within the 5 seconds. Now, this could be a very interesting game because both Sacco and Apooche are known to play aggressively. But looking at the board right now, neither of the players are actually going for the aggressive play. Both of the players are going sort of the lukewarm aggression. The units aren't exactly close to the mid. Like if you're playing aggro with spiders, normally I like to see the spider right here, where you have the fangs sort of right here. Where if you're going aggro sledges, I'd love to see the sledges right here. But right now, everybody's just kind of giving each other a little bit of distance. Now, speaking of the positioning here, I think vertical sledges is interesting into spiders. I feel like when you're playing with spiders, you will love to have the tank in the horizontal format so you get more shots in very fast. But I think the vertical sledges, the real purpose of that is more for chaff clear. So there's a very interesting nuance when you're playing spider, especially with crawler behind the spider, is that your spider can actually walk forward and tank the first shot so that when your crawlers eventually catch up afterward, the tanks are already locked onto the spider. So in that case, if you're playing vertical or horizontal sledges, then all of your tank would have been locked on. But if you're playing vertical sledges, at least a few, maybe 3 or 2 tanks at the bottom of that row or column is not yet locked onto the spider, which means they can then participate on a bit of a chaff clear. But the danger, as you saw in this particular round of having the spiders in front of the crawlers, is that if your opponent has something like a marksman, then they will get locked on instantly, which means all of a sudden your chaff clear dies very quickly. But that's an easily fixable problem. All you need is just to have another Fang. Fang will probably works the best because they don't run forward. Just have some fangs in front to soak that initial few shots from the marksman, and then your crawlers will catch up in just a few seconds. All right, we're gonna take a look at the round 2 reinforcement cards. ER Stonecrawler could be very interesting for both players. I think it's probably more so for Apooche if he wants to play more standard game. Stonecrawlers do decent damage into sledge lines, and yeah, it just could be a very interesting card. Surprisingly, Apooche picked the anti-interference module. It's not something that you normally take as a precaution. I think he might be thinking of defending against hackers, which is known to be fairly effective into spiders. All right, so it's going to be another unit of crawlers. Yeah, so now the first few shots from these marksmen are just going to land onto these crawlers. We have Sabertooth at the front. This guy here on the right is not going to be able to EM'd, which means they can be slowed and they can get all the technology on it and it would do okay. It's going to be more sledgehammers coming in from Sacco, also in vertical configuration. But the concern right now, though, I think is just the lack of overall damage. But we'll see. We do have a ton more sledgehammers, so hopefully these sledgehammers will be able to do the damage output needed to get those sabers done. All right. So the saber on the left-hand side, because it has been locked by the marksman since the very beginning, did go down. But the tarantula should be able to deal with that single squad of sledgehammers. And on the right-hand side, we are winning pretty hard. So the next round, we have to decide for Sacco what his primary DPS is going to be. It's also the power spike round with the new Typhoons. Another anti-interference was dropped, but in this round, I think Wasp Swarm could be very good. It's better for Sacco because there's actually no AA right now. For Apooche, it's going to be a heavy armor, possibly going on to a Sabertooth. The Sabertooth on the left-hand side was pretty vulnerable, so here it goes. Heavy armor. And for Sacco, what is going to be your DPS? There's a couple ways he can go about it, right? He can go with Typhoon with rockets if he decides to push heavily into the Typhoons. But right now, I mean, just looking at the board, it may not be necessary. You can continue to just add on to these marksmen, but marksmen do have inferior damage output compared to Sabertooth. And over time, once Apooche's board kind of builds into like a row of Saber Tarantula, especially with Tarantula and Spider Mines, your marksman will fall off pretty hard. What's better than marksman? Well, 2 marksmen, but in this case, it's going to be Phoenixes. You can buy them in pairs, which means you're going to get a little bit more damage output. They're also in the air, which means right now our rep player does not have any AA. This is going to be the Wasp Swarm round, so Apooche did add in 2 squads of Mustangs. Very prudent decision. It's also going to be a Typhoon at the corner, so that's going to pull the Mustang and also the crawlers to the corner. However, the Mustangs are going to do its job and defend against the Wasp Swarm. But it is not going to be able to kill the Typhoons, which means at some point that Typhoon is going to get towered. But if you're just looking at how the game is shaping out, both Sabertooth get locked onto by both the Marksmen and the Phoenixes, which means the Tarantula are going to have a hard time bringing down those sledgehammers. Alright. Still winning on the left-hand side though, because of the late arriving chaff. And tower did go down. However, it's just way too many units here for Apooche to deal with. All right, we're looking at round 4. Unit drop here. Fire Badger could be super annoying if Sacco takes them and continues to put them at the backside flanks. Right now, Apooche's entire strategy relies on those late arriving chaff, so having something in the backside could be extremely annoying. Scorpion could be also a great card for Sacco if he needs to have a more definitive answer, but right now, it's going to be Fire Badgers on both sides. So for Sacco, I think the Fire Badger is going to be great, which is helping out with a bit of chaff clear. The vertical sledges are also great. I mean, right now they're almost not so much as a chaff clear, more so as just chaff. Interesting positioning on Sacco's Fire Badger. I think what he was really thinking about is he was thinking about Napalm. Having a Fire Badger right here in the middle, put Napalm, and that's going to draw pretty much 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 crawlers walking towards the center. And if you can keep this Fire Badger alive for long enough, it's going to do a whole lot of damage. But before Napalm, I think he just wants to try out this Oil Fire Badger combo, and here it goes. And that's going to kill a whole lot of crawlers here. Alright, the Typhoons got repositioned to the other side. Now we have Mech Rage onto the Sledgehammers. Still a little concerned about the overall damage output from Sacco's board. Consists of just 2 marksmen and 2 squads of Phoenixes. But at least the last round, I feel like they were adequate. So we're going to have to see. Now it just becomes a game of who gets rid of the chaff first. And right now, Sacco's chaff is really just 5 squads of Sledgehammers. We'll love to see Scorpions coming in for Apooche. Scorpions can deal with the Sledgehammers a lot more efficiently and also help out with the initial chaff clear. So right now it seems like Sacco is definitely winning the chaff war pretty hard. Improved War Factory could also be a nail in the coffin if it decides to go. So Apooche can take Improved War Factory and just have it in the corner. They're excellent into sledgehammer lines. In fact, both of them are going to break this. I mean, we've seen both of them in the past. Apooche actually was one of the earlier players of start doing this corner war factory stuff. But Sacco has also been a pretty strong proponent of war factories. I think back in like earlier on around March or April at this time, I've always seen him playing War Factory Mustangs for like the longest time. I started playing War Factory Mustangs. It's just a lot of fun. So this could be very interesting. Depends. Usually corner war factory comes down around round 6 or 7 because you don't want to keep those corner war factories on for too long. They do cost 200 supplies to maintain every round, and if you're not winning the game in the next 2 rounds, then you will be at an economic disadvantage. Now, both players, once this round starts, they will see each other's cards, so they would know that they both took Improved War Factory, and it just becomes a game of chicken. They want to guess where the opponent is going to have this War Factory, and he wants to put it on the same side with Launcher Overload to meet it. So we'll see. So far, I think Apooche has a slightly stronger board if War Factory does go down. The Sabertooth can always take double shot, and they can do a lot more damage compared to the Phoenix and Marksman DPS. However, Sacco has a much stronger chaff line in the form of these sledgehammers, and also late arriving chaff in the form of these Mustangs. And as you can see in this round, once again, we're having some pretty significant problems of just cutting through this chaff here. Now, we are breaking in through the middle, and this is where the marksmen really start to be outscaled a little bit, because the HP increase from the tarantula is so much more than the damage increase from the marksman. Both tower gets taken, and this is actually going to be a pretty good round for Apooche. So now we're getting into the dangerous territory of round 6, where a war factory could potentially go down. Redeployment should be a must pick right now because of the corner war factory play. I wouldn't be surprised if both of them actually take redeployment in this round. Sacco actually skipped it, so maybe that's a signal that he's not going to go with corner war factory, at least not in the war factory. Yeah, so here's the war factory, but it's not corner. Instead, it's just going to be part of the army. Apooche, I think this is a 7 square spot right here. Definitely not a 7 square on the other side, so I'm not entirely sure. All right, so it's just this is very interesting. He does have redeployment, which means he can ship the Sabertooth out of the way this round. But with the another Sabertooth on the other side, I feel like this is going to be a very weird war factory timing. So maybe it's not corner war factory after all. It's going to be something else. All right. So Sacco is the first one showing his hands with this war factory here. And I think this war factory is going to do very well, because with launcher overload, it's going to completely erase this squad of fans right here. And the fire badgers are not going to be able to help with the chaff clear for these late arriving crawlers. And what that means is the Sabertooths are going to get stuck on shooting at crawlers and also shooting at sledgehammers. And that's exactly what's happening. As you can see right now, the Sabertooth is just not able to get a lock onto this war factory, which means this war factory is just going to walk in unimpeded and destroy everything here on the left hand side. On the right hand side though, they are doing pretty well getting tower with these crawlers and of course clearing out the rest of the units. We still have 3 sabers left over, and this should be enough to deal with this war factory, but I think the real killer here is this chaff line, so we'll see. We got some ninja crawlers trying to sneak in the back here, and here comes the saber number 1. 1 shot, 2 shot, ooh, almost. There it goes. Farseer is going to be an excellent card in disabling the War Factory if it takes EM. Farseer does have the range to outrange War Factory, at least in the beginning, until it takes range on the War Factory themselves, but with some chaff clear, these should be just fine. It's going to be a Rhino pick for Sacco, probably going to be a Cell, and it's probably going to be a either Technology or taking another War Factory. Now you notice that Sacco does not have efficient maintenance turned on. So there's being a bit of a debate on just how economically viable is efficient maintenance. In this case, is not at all with being just one War Factory on the board, because every round Sacco is going to take a technology. So the later he can take it, he needs to take efficient maintenance, the better, because if he does take efficient maintenance, every technology costs 200 more, which is essentially the cost savings of 150 per round from taking efficient maintenance. So if he plans on taking tech pretty much every single round with just a single War Factory, he doesn't need to take efficient maintenance. Here goes down the other War Factory from Apooche. Instead of going with just launcher, it's going to go with range. I think the range is a correct call here because the sledgehammers will actually run into the War Factory. So now it has 165 versus the sledgehammers of 110. So once the sledgehammers are in the firing range of these back cannons, this War Factory can actually be very effective. So you almost see them as range with launcher overload simply because of just how far other units move into them. Personally, I will always take range before launcher overload unless I want to put something by the tower with the mobile beacon, and that's very situational. So as you can see here, range is just doing so much better. But we do have a big Rhino on the back line here, and that Rhino did get tower, which means the Phoenixes are now going to town onto these Overlords. Range War Factory is trying his best to take down this Rhino, but we'll see. Maybe we'll just take it down just in time, and there it is. And now it's a level 2 War Factory versus a level 1. The good thing, though, is that all the Phoenixes are dead, so it really just comes down to these War Factories. But I think the level 2 War Factory should be winning the fight here. We got 2 Mustangs left over in the form of AA. Oh, Launcher Overload War Factory is so powerful. And surprisingly, it is going to be a win for Sacco. We'll just have to wait and see if these 2 Mustangs can actually get the job done. We'll see though. It is moving towards the tower, which means once it gets tower, the Mustangs can do double the amount of damage. Oh, it's actually going to be a draw. That's funny. All right, so we got cards here. It's going to be a skip for Sacco. And I think for Apooche, I mean, looking at the cards here, none of them is really that powerful. So it's going to be a skip for both sides. Now both players know we have War Factories. I think Sacco's had War Factory for longer, which means this is now turn 3, which means he has lost 400 supplies of resource due to maintenance, whereas Apooche has only lost 200. It is going to be a level 3 War Factory, so quite a big unit. I don't think Apooche can contest the level 3 War Factory just by his own War Factory alone, especially if he has launchers, so he might have to think about something else. Improved Score was actually interesting because you can then pivot into asset range, but is always a risk, right? If your asset range doesn't work in that particular round, then it becomes a bit of a problem. Oil goes down into the midline, so that's going to burn a lot of chaff coming in from Apooche. And that Fire Badger, I think this is one of those pro moves that I love to see in games like these. Just having a single Fire Badger right there in the middle, it serves as some sort of initial chaff clear, but the real purpose is just for oil to be ignited later on. I mean, there are no other Fire Badgers. All the other form of chaff clear comes from these Mech Rage Sledgehammers. So, very interesting play here with these Fire Badger. Alright, so we got Mobile Beacon. Apooche was actually expecting oil on that side. Interestingly, he Mobile Beaconed to the other side from where his own oil was on. So, it's funny to see how these players are kind of guessing each other's moves. All right, now we got the level 2 War Factory, but I don't think the level 2 War Factory is going to get any shot off the level 3 War Factory. And looking at the HP here, I mean, it's very close for both players. However, this is going to be a big round for the Sako here with the War Factory and a bunch of units still surviving. Getting to round 9 here. Scorpion is being offered. Stormcaller can also be good, but you always have to worry about War Factory taking AM. I think Scorpion is going to be the pick here for both players, either with range and asset, or if you're running Siege, you can also go Siege with asset. So Scorpion gets picked up. It's going to be range asset from Apooche. Sako is still deciding, and instead it's going to be a single Vulcan, immediately selling one of these Vulcan here. And now the Vulcan is going to go into the back line, pulling 1, 2, 3 squads of chaff. This factory is now level 4. So without the Scorpion or a level 2 melting point, this factory is actually just going to kill pretty much everything on this side. We do see a double tag War Factory from Apooche as well, so this is going to be very interesting. Mech Rage Steel Balls. So it's going to be Steel Ball production, Mech Rage Steel Balls, and that's going to help with a bit of an asset tanking. Where did the Scorp go? Uh-oh. Both Scorps are now on the same side. This is not the correct play. I feel like the Scorpion needs to at least have one of them on the other side, because you're not going to DPS down your opponent, but rather you're hoping that your opponents are going to get whittled away with the asset as it moves towards tower. So having both Scorpions on one side, because this is what a DPS formation looks like, is probably a mistake. You want to have asset on the other side. Another way to deal with something like this is actually to have asset crawlers. Except Apooche does not run asset crawlers, which means that strategy is now impossible. Because you can run asset crawlers and those assets will be permanent, and this War Factory will have to run across to get to that asset. So yeah, we'll see. It is now level 4 though, which means it does produce level 4 steel balls, and they are extremely tanky. Alright, asset Scorpions coming in. Now it's just a race against the clock here. Can the Acid Scorpion actually get the damage done onto this level 4 War Factory before it gets DPS down? And the answer might be yes, especially with the Overlord shooting at it. So a pretty good round here for Apooche. And this is such a close game. Both players are taking each other down to just under 1,000 HP here. Ooh, 113. So this is going to be a final round here. Assault Scorpion, probably not. I would take the Assault Scorpion if Siege mode is in available tech, because you just get a lot more shots off. But in this case, it's going to be Smoke Bomb. Is there anything we can do with quick cooldown here? No, the oil is still 2 turns away. So it's probably going to be Smoke Bomb for both, or you can choose to skip. I mean, it is round 10, so both players sure have a ton of money. I would definitely go with the Smoke Bomb, and here it is. A very interesting Smoke Bomb location all the way at the bottom here. I think the purpose for that is he wants to squeeze this Mustang. So before the Mustangs used to shoot right around here, he wants to squeeze it forward into like this location, and this is where the range of the War Factory is going to be. Specifically the range of the War Factory's back cannons. So very interesting. And for Sako, he's actually putting smoke on his own side of the board, knowing this is where the War Factory is going to be. So both players can have a very close quarter fight right here in the middle. On the left-hand side, he notices that there's not going to be any Scorpions, so he actually mobile beacons them over to the mid here, where the army is going to be weak. So this is actually a brilliant move. So what's going to happen when this round starts is Apooche's War Factory is going to be stuck in the smoke while taking shots from these 2 War Factories outside of the smoke. very small, finely strategized movements here from these top players. And remember, the MMR for these players are both above 2,000. Apooche actually won the Launch Clash tournament, so these are some of the best players that we have in Mechabellum. So, I love this sort of small movement, just kind of moving away. Now, the good thing about this War Factory is that it's actually not going to walk into the acid simply because of this board here. So sometimes you can expect something like this to happen and then still miscalculate anyways. But I guess it doesn't matter, because with the steel ball production and with Phoenixes still in the air, I think this is going to be a game for Mr. Sacco here. So a very close round, and also a very explosive final round with some trickery being at play with Smoke Bomb and also the Mobile Beacon. So I hope you enjoyed this game, and if you want to see another high-level game just like this, here is another video for you, and I will see you on the next one.
Prepare your tactics, Mechabellum's calling. Deploy your fortress, the battlefield's alive with swarms.